Frog Autumn by Sylvia Plath. Summer grows old, cold-blooded mother. The insects are scant, skinny. In these palustral homes we only croak and wither. Mornings dissipate in somnolence. The sun brightens tardily among the pithless reeds. Flies fail us, the fen sickens. Frost drops even the spider. Clearly the genius of plenitude houses himself elsewhere. Our folk thin lamentably. What is it about autumn and November, or as one poet named it, Nis Nilimbo? Even words fall apart and their meanings. It's the year coming to an end. Welcome to Poetry of Immigrants. This is our fall season show. And we're taking a deep breath because we're going to practice gratitude today in the readings of many of our poets. And it's a season of gratitude, and it's also the season of life and death, life within death, death within life. So it's a kind of cerebral take with some powerful poets that you may recognize. On my right is Freddie Hashemian, formerly best cameraman, now one of my best guests. And Elaine Nadal, who came with Fred today. And the three of us hope to bring up some touching thoughts. I'm going to read a second short poem, which I just found about 12 o'clock today, because we have to put my cat down after 5 this afternoon, and I've had her 14 and a half years. And up popped this poem. It's amazing how synchronicity and intuition works. At the last, there is no denying that it matters little when through a narrow door we enter a room together. Which goes after, which before? I'm thinking of Abby, how she meets me at the top of the stairs every day I come home. Perhaps you are not dying. Perhaps there is no knowing. I shall slip by and turn and laugh with you because it mattered so little, the order of our going. To me, that poem says volumes about the soul connection and how maybe a few months or a few years between our passing, she and I together, make no difference at all. Poets have that ability. So you'll hear, I think, a lot of mindfulness embedded in the lines. And we need, most of all in November, soul nurturing, because so many of us are facing the death of one thing or another, one person or another, and the nourishing is essential to keep going. Fred, thank you. You brought Rumi, who's Mr. Gratitude and Mr. Mindfulness, and probably the poet that means most to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Woke me up 3 years ago. Oh my God, I've never read this.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, totally transporting. Imagine discovering Rumi at age 72. I'm shaving off a year there.
Had you ever encountered any other Persian poets before him?
Never.
Interesting.
Oh, so the Persian culture and history, which goes so far back, has this shining star. What century was he?
13th.
That's right, yeah. And what moves you most about Rumi?
That's a difficult question. Just his idea that we're always developing.
Oh,
One never stops developing. One never stops opening up oneself to the universe. You see that theme repeated in his poems,
I
this
felt that.
openness.
I felt that
things.
over and over and over, deeply. And also the soulful aspect which celebrates spirituality across all cultures and nations and ethnic identities and literatures. Oh my gosh.
That's why he's so important to so many people.
And so universal.
Yeah.
Because everybody else said to me, Rumi, Rumi. I said, oh, okay. I get it.
We have to thank Coleman Barks, also the translator, for
yeah.
the recent,
He did the book I read.
Yeah.
He translated, and with such loving care and tender.
And there are also other translations, and it's interesting to compare.
Oh.
Because that's one of the frightening things when you're reading poetry in another language. You ask yourself, how much am I really missing? You would know this from knowing Russian and being able to read Dostoevsky in Russian.
Exactly.
How much of it is not translated or even translatable?
And that puts me off initially. It's like, oh, can I trust
humbling.
it?
Yeah.
Can I trust it to be? Are these translated by Coleman?
These are, yes. And, he has a few other translators in here, but Coleman Barks is the main one, along with John Moyne is another one. But, yes, give him some credit.
Open us up.
Sure.
Open our souls up to the spirituality that is his dimension.
All right, so this poem is called Special Plates. Notice how each particle moves. Notice how everyone has just arrived here from a journey. Notice how each wants a different food. Notice how the stars vanish as the sun comes up, and how all streams stream toward the ocean. Look at the chefs preparing special plates for everyone according to what they need. Look at this cup that can hold the ocean. Look at those who see the face. Look through Sham's eyes into the water that is entirely jewels.
So I'll look at the ocean here and I'll see jewels, those shimmering jewels.
I mean, you mentioned before mindfulness, and that's something that I get from this poem, this idea that nothing is too small or negligible to be neglected, and there's so much beauty everywhere. And we just have
Nothing
to
is insignificant.
watch. Yeah,
Everything shimmers
absolutely.
at a certain depth. Oh, it's thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
And what does Farsi sound like? Say a few words of, weather or colors or sounds or even time of day.
امروز خیلی سرده. من خیلی خوشحالم که اینجا هستم. I just said today's very cold. I'm very happy to be here. It's a very beautiful language.
It's a beautiful language. It has a lot in common with Russian's ha.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Хорошо.
خوشحال. Happy.
Happy. Hashon. Hashon. I don't want to give the Japanese version. It's tricky to.
Oh yeah.
And do you have another favorite?
Yes, I do.
I think you have
many favorites. But, wow.
How wonderful.
We all love music, right?
We love music.
So this
Music's universal.
Absolutely. This one is called Where Everything is Music. Don't worry about saving these songs. And if one of our instruments breaks, it doesn't matter. We have fallen into the place where everything is music.
Wow.
The strumming and the flute notes rise into the atmosphere, and even if the whole world's harp should burn up, there will still be hidden instruments playing. So the candle flickers and goes out. We have a piece of flint and a spark. The singing art is sea foam. The graceful movements come from a pearl somewhere on the ocean floor. Poems reach up like spindrift and the edge of driftwood along the beach, wanting. They derive from a slow and powerful root that we can't see. Stop the words now. Open the window in the center of your chest and let the spirits fly in and out.
Thank you for choosing that one. That is it. The universality of the Spirit. Isn't it amazing, and I'm getting the power through that translation, of how a translator can really make it alive. That
Yes.
proves, I think that's why I fell so deeply for Rumi 3 years ago, because of Coleman Barks' ability.
But if you ever get the chance, and a native speaker or someone familiar with Persian poetry can read you some Rumi in Farsi, to just listen to the sound. And I'm getting this from firsthand knowledge from my uncle, who is the one who introduced me to Persian poetry, my Amu Said, who I love very much.
Amu Said.
He introduced me to Persian poetry, and he read some of this for me, and I didn't even understand all the words. Of course, I can get by with Farsi, but I can't discuss poetry or read poetry. It's not up to that level, my mastery of the language. But just to hear it and enjoy the power of it, the musicality of it, and also to understand some of the words, you realize, wow, the translation is missing something. But better to have it than have nothing, and this is very beautiful.
Yeah, and it comes so close to the original. I can
Absolutely.
feel through the imagery.
Yeah.
And what a universal thought. I mean, that image of unheard melodies. Keats, heard melodies are sweet, quote, but those unheard are sweeter.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
The depth of that universal awareness. So I think I need another one. I'm really on a roll with
Really?
it. I really
Ready
do.
for another one?
Sure. I mean, I'm in a sense breathing it. It's so beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
The
I've got
breathing is
plenty.
important, yeah. And I love the sound of the Farsi breathing in there, yeah.
Let's see. I think this one is beautiful. A community of the spirit. This goes to the whole idea of opening oneself up to the universe. There is a community of the spirit. Join it and feel the delight of walking in the noisy street and being the noise. Drink all your passion and be a disgrace. Close both eyes to see with the other eye. Open your hands if you want to be held. Sit down in this circle. Quit acting like a wolf and feel the shepherd's love filling you.
Wow.
At night, your beloved wanders. Don't accept consolations. Close your mouth against food. Taste the lover's mouth in yours. You moan, she left me. He left me. 20 more will come. Be empty of worrying. Think of who created thought. Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open? Move outside the tangle of fear thinking. Live in silence. Flow down and down in always widening rings of being.
What a universal appeal. I think I'm feeling such a deep affinity because I'm recognizing him through his images in so many other poets I know. And there's a commonality. He's so open and open-hearted to the universe that it's catching. What did he look like?
I have no idea.
Let's grab that little book behind you and maybe flip to one of those pages. You could hold it up to the camera. And in the middle there's a beautiful, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Freddie Hashemian, who definitely will be back. Wow, what a good talent you have reading.
Is there a portrait of him in here?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Let's open it to, can I choose something?
that's beautiful.
This is
It's
gorgeous.
very pretty.
Oh, that is so, that's essential. Now I have a question. Chris earlier said, or no, my librarian who was researching for me, Lou Daniels, local, and he said, Frank, isn't Persian art supposed to keep human figures out of the art and just focus on non-human, the animal world, or the, and I said, I don't know. But we came across that picture with the two human figures in the bottom left, and I don't know the answer to that, but he's a good reference guy, and he asked the question, is like, oh, that's something I'll have to Google. Figures in Persian art. Oh man, could you pass that?
Sure.
I wanna enjoy that again. I have an image in my mind of an elderly gentleman just so at peace with the world and serene that he's sitting there in a kind of openness, almost Buddha-like is my image. I don't know.
We know he used to dance a lot, swirl, and he had an appreciation of music when he was writing poetry, and so he would many times follow his poetry writing with dancing and.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about the merging here of the arts, the celebration of poetry and music and painting together, but this adds dance.
Sure.
So Sufism, do they dance?
Yes.
Part of the ritual. Yeah.
The swirling dervish dancing.
Oh my
the
gosh.
Mysticism.
Mysticism. Maybe
Associated with
that's it.
Sure.
I connected with the mystical depth first with him. And I guess I had been looking for that for a long time. Thank you. What a great, deep appreciation. Welcome, Elaine Nadal.
Hola.
Hola. Oh. Say a few Spanish words.
Bueno, estoy tan contenta de estar aquí, muy entusiasmada, sí.
I'm so glad to be here.
Sí, ya sabes, es un placer siempre. Nos divertimos muchísimo.
Очень приятно познакомиться. The universal language. Talk to us about your own poetry.
Well, the ones that I'm sharing today, I picked, actually the first one that I will do is earlier piece. It's called Visions, and kind of reminds me a lot of that idea now that we're talking about mindfulness and just paying attention to details. And you know, sometimes we get so caught up with life that we miss really in those little pockets or important things that just happens around us, you know. And if we just pay attention and really, like the poem had mentioned about food and noticing, you know, it's so important. So this was an earlier piece, Visions, and yeah, I'd like to share it. And it's actually based on some of the objects and people that I saw. So it's called Visions.
Good for you. Visions.
Yes.
I love the title.
Her white hair glistened as she waited for the bus, her piercing eyes flashing years of neglect, a yin-yang in her smile, resignation and hope coexisting in a vault. I remember her. Standing at the bus stop, a dreamlike vision, she lit the streets with her will and eclipsed them with her pain. Attempting to grasp life's paradoxes and perturb at monotony, I drank some red wine. It flowed through my body like turbulent oceans. And I saw you, standing on a hill, lit in the heights of my beloved city, a city inundated with filth and charm. My eyes became a fountain. You are finally restored. And I looked up with such pride and walked away with renewed strength.
That is so visionary. I mean, the imagery is coalescing with Rumi's. That's beautiful.
The whole idea of the drinking of the wine also, you see that motif in many Persian poets with Omar Khayyam and even with Rumi, which doesn't always literally mean drinking wine, but just the embracing of the world, taking in life, and that's in there. And also I like the whole that dichotomy between like resignation and hope is interesting.
That came up earlier session when you were here, the resignation and the hope. How keeping that balance of hope within despair, or life within death. So many thoughts. So tell me again that image of the wine flooding. What were those words exactly?
Oh, yeah, do you want me to repeat? It
yeah.
says, I drank some red wine. It flowed through my body like turbulent oceans.
Oh, yeah. Now that does a lot for the image. Turbulent ocean. Your imagery is superior. I noticed that.
Thank you so much, yeah.
Earlier. How would you describe your gift? Are you on the mystical side, or are you, because it seems to be a nice spectrum between mystical poets down to the cerebral, or the intellectual, or the word poems?
Yeah. It's to be honest, I just write whatever comes. Like I think observation is so important.
It's key.
And just even looking around, the human experience, what people go through, my experiences as well. I just started writing poetry in my mother tongue, which I thought I would never be able to do. So I feel like I'm constantly writing something and surprising myself,
Recently?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I wrote 4 poems in Spanish. And even though it's my first language, I just didn't think I could produce anything in Spanish. So I just think it varies with what I'm going through, what I'm seeing, what's going around, in the world. So yeah, it's kind of hard to classify, but yeah.
But it's all there. And you have the same approach to empathy that Rumi has. He's welcoming, seems, his hearers, his readers, into his soul. Yeah. But I pick up on your empathic response to people, so you're bringing your emotions pretty directly to the imagery. I love that fusion in your work. That's what was attractive earlier when I heard you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And it's good to have somebody else sometimes read your own work, because you hear it and feel it in a different way.
Yeah.
Has Fred read some of your poems back to you?
He has, actually, yes. He's very supportive and very good. He's read all my poems, yeah.
Does he read them out loud to you?
Yeah, and we discuss them.
Oh.
And, so he's a resource for me too.
Could we do that? Could you read one of her poems?
Absolutely, sure.
Sure. I don't know if you can do the Spanish one, so I'll have you do maybe the Baptiste one.
Yeah, that's probably the best bet.
That's actually a great idea, by the way. So
Baptiste. Okay, so this is something.
And it's not in
we both
Spanish.
had.
No, not this one.
Baptiste, I had been taken slowly into the waters. There was a red speck on the white cloth wrapped around my eyes, an innocuous spot in my reasoning. I found myself submerged, kicking and extending my arms until you pulled me out and gave me a painting of a boat sailing the ocean. You have to tell the story behind that now.
Beautiful sound to that. Your cadence is wonderful. He reads well.
He does. Yeah, I have to tell a story about this one.
Yes.
So the story behind this one, it has a lot to do with an experience, that we had, and also with creativity. I think that, the human experience, we go through suffering, and I think it was a rough time for me in many ways. And we were in Savannah, Georgia, and after we ate, we decided to walk the downtown, and there was like a plaza of galleries, and I love art, so we're walking down, and I'm just like thinking, about the different, different things, and there was a gallery that caught my eye, and it was very colorful, and I could tell that it was like Caribbean. So I went inside to look around the paintings, and the artist was there. So I was excited, that the artist, and he was actually painting. And I'm looking around the walls, and I see, the prices, and I'm like, oh my goodness, he's a successful artist. And he introduced himself. He began to tell me his story, how he came from Haiti on a boat, how he never picked up brushes. Yeah, and he never picked up brushes before, but he was poor, so he had to make money. And he just painted, and he produced this beautiful work, and it took him time to sell a painting, and that's discouraging, especially for an artist. You want to kind of feel validated and feel that people are appreciating your work. And after he sold his first painting, he just began to sell his work, and I was so moved that I actually cried. Yeah. And he actually. I say gave, but we purchased a painting from him, but it was a gift pretty much, let me just say, at a really reasonable price. And that inspired this poem, because I think creativity is so beautiful, and you also never know what your words can do to someone else and how it can move them. And just those small things, that his story just moved me and inspired me in such a way. It kind of rejuvenated me, it gave me, what I mean? It was a nice, it was just a really good experience.
And it produced that.
Yeah.
How deep that goes. Yeah. And we had quite a show on Haitian art here.
We did.
We did. Do you have that painting now?
I do have that painting.
Oh.
We have that painting, yeah. It's beautiful.
I bet.
So, the colors, I love color, so.
And Haitian art is my favorite, has been since I went there in '65. I can't get over the colors. Yeah. And the quality. Wow, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful story. And how about a Spanish poem? In Spanish?
This one it's in English, but it has words in Spanish.
Oh, good.
So it has, a little, I sprinkled some words in Spanish.
Sprinkled, yeah.
And it's called Life, and I wrote it because I love salsa music.
Oh.
I really love it. It moves me. It's not just I know you dance with it, but it moves me, in such a way. And
yes.
And it is such a complex form.
It is.
And I wanted to kind of capture that. And it wasn't even just it was just for me. I just wanted to write down what it does for me. That was the intention when I wrote this. So it's called Life. Salsa is sea salt onto our feet, brown sugar onto our lips. It's a flock of birds over the sea, the pearled and set an oyster polished with vinegar. It's a sky we decorate with stars, forming constellations that impart the joys and hollers of the past while ushering our steps into the secrets of the sun. Salsa es el pan de agua we eat with asopao, a half-dried coconut buried in the sand. The gourd cultivated in fertile soil, so thick-skinned that scrapes carve stripes of pride. Salsa is a proverb inside a flower, carrying a fragrance that awakens the spirit. It's the roots of palm trees, the blanket our abuelas covered us with, made with old garments and tablecloths. We feel the warmth envelop our bodies. We rock back, swayed from side to side, and move forward, because nothing should be wasted, and much could be created with some imagination, inspiration, and love.
Oh, that's a beautiful ending. Yeah. And you wrote that for yourself. Yeah.
I was listening to salsa music, and it was just it has so much. And it's not just the rhythm and the sounds, but it really comes from a tradition of suffering and making something out of nothing,
Oh, I love that thought.
So And it sounds so happy, but it's appreciation, you know, it's creativity. There's a lot of, besides a call and response, there's a lot of improvisation, which is creativity. I mean, there's unity too. There has to be a cohesion within the piece, a communal, and then there's this experience of the human experience, and it just. It's so funny because I have like people that say, oh, salsa music all sound the same, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. It does not. No. You know, you really have to like get into, you know, the intricacy of it. It's just so.
And the subtleties and the nuances, and I mean, that is such a beautiful thought because it could just go over.
The fact that, I mean, it has to be done so perfectly, because if it doesn't, it'll just be noise. And the fact that you can move to it, there's so much going on, so many, it's polyrhythmic.
I was going to say, the body responds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just irrepressible what happens. Wow, what a great first half. We're going to take a little break. Oh, so go to the fridge, take out the potato salad, and enjoy, because I can't have a thing to eat today.
Have it for you.
So we'll be back. Enjoy the service announcements because they're really, really wonderful. And we look forward to seeing you in about 3 minutes. Thanks.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
You're doing great. We're gonna try this again, okay?
Okay.
Wheels, pedals, handlebar, brakes. Sit up straight, keep your weight in the center, keep your eyes on the road, hands on the grips, button the seat. If we feel ourselves falling, what do?
Just keep
pedaling.
pedaling.
Good girl. Now remember, it's all about balance and steering. Steer with your hands, steer with your body. Steer into the corners and you stay out of trouble. And the bell's your buddy, so go ahead and ding that. All right, you ready? Here we go. Pedal, honey, pedal. There you go, you're a bike rider.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
I'm Howard Schwartz from the Better Business Bureau serving Connecticut with a consumer moment. Consumers have more power in their hands than ever before. We can go into a store to find an item and then jump on the computer and click until we find the best price. Just remember, aside from the majority of legitimate businesses, there are criminal operations that put up sophisticated-looking websites that are designed to steal your credit card or other financial information. Even legitimate bottom-basement prices can sometimes be deceiving if you compare the costs of shipping and handling. Do your homework, take your time, and try to stick with well-known websites. Before you pay, make sure that the website address begins with HTTPS. S stands for secure, and you'll see a padlock icon next to it. That means the website is taking the steps necessary to protect your information. This consumer moment is brought to you by BBB Serving Connecticut, where you can start with trust.
With newspapers and media outlets merging all over the country, communities are losing their local voice.
There's so much going on in the community that I think doesn't really, there's a lot of folks who are unaware of it. And I think things like this can bring it out into the community and in that way kind of bring the community together.
Information and to our residents is the key to good governance. And with the national media and local media not often covering us, this is an excellent opportunity for us constantly to communicate with our constituents and also to have them communicate with us.
The best outcomes will be achieved through a community-based organization that grows its operation and scale by means of locally produced programming.
All of our content is volunteer produced, so we do shows from talk shows to music shows, working with high schools.
VSC-TV is committed to ensuring that the investment made to secure these powerful tools will pay great dividends in the community for many, many years.
I didn't brush up on it.
Welcome back. We are having a heady show and a heady time, aren't we? Thank you for that first half. I brought a poem that a student of mine printed up for me. And it deals with this time of year. and I'd like to read it to you. He did a wonderful job, and his help was in the office and decided, well, let's put some leaves on it. The Gift of Paradise Lost. When good friends and family fall away like leaves, bleeding red-orange, leaking in yellow photo frames, a younger self, slim, supplicating, sure-limbed, holding a green thought in a green shade, a sapling in a dream, but for that idiot-faced moon always smiling as a curse. Wonder if that foolish youth might have kept his leaves longer without so many seasons of grief, loss, tragedy. Perhaps hurled headstrong to the edge of mad verse by the daemon, a blissful, mindless run of creativity, a dance between father and son before perishing into spring. I think that came out of my relationship with my son and his relationship with his son and my relationship with my grandson, Nathan. And Paradise Lost is an allusion to John Milton's Paradise Lost. And the other borrowed phrase, here's a note that's important to share, quote, a green thought in a green shade is 16th century Andrew Marvell. And I borrowed Idiot-Faced Moon from some poet. But it really worked. Someone says, what does perishing into spring mean? What? I think fall is perishing, right? And then spring is awakening. And I love the colors. So, the circle of life, the circle of the year, the circle of so much that's archetypal, Fred, in literature. Would you grab Joseph Campbell behind you?
Ah, yes.
And read those first 8 or 9 lines out of the where the pink thing is? By the way, Mr. Hashemian teaches class and uses Campbell.
Absolutely.
And that was a nice connection this
yeah.
morning.
Oh, yeah. All right, so this is in the chapter called Initiation. The Road of Trials. Once having traversed the threshold, the hero moves in a dream landscape of curiously fluid, ambiguous forms, where he must survive a succession of trials. This is a favorite phase of the myth adventure. It has produced a world of literature of miraculous tests and ordeals. The hero is covertly aided by the advice, amulets, and secret agents of the supernatural helper whom he met before his entrance into this region. Or it may be that he here discovers for the first time that there is a benign power everywhere supporting him in his superhuman passage.
That lucky hero, he's got help. Virgil, Dante, you name it. It's universal, right?
Absolutely.
What drew you to Joseph Campbell in your teaching role?
Well, I have to say that, my first year teaching, I was teaching at the Robert H. Brown Middle School in Madison, and it was part of the curriculum there.
Right in Madison?
Yeah, right in Madison. And, my mentor there, Mr. Hirschnick, we were talking about it. Sadly, he passed a few years ago. But I found it to be a fascinating theory, and then I found out through research that none other than George Lucas used that theory as an inspiration for Star Wars. And many of the interviews that Bill Moyers did, probably all of them, were done at Skywalker Ranch for the
I didn't
power
know
of myth.
that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And it's a beautiful way to teach literature, even film, to just show that the patterns that are repeated, and
The
it's a nice
repeated
way.
patterns are amazing.
Absolutely.
And you can dress them up in any native dress around the world, but it's the same pattern. What does that tell us? It tells us the universality of the archetypes, which apply to all countries, literatures, nations, and cultures, which brings us to the circle of one world. Or as Gemma said the last show, that's the original circle. Mom holds you in her arms, right? Circles. Northrop Frye in the 70s was big, something about anatomy of literature. Again, identifying all these patterns, fascinating. That hooked me big time, because I was interested in psychoanalysis at the time. And those taped interviews, lawyers, were on recently, and I caught a few. And now I have a new doorway. Just found that for $1 on the.
That's a great introduction to this book. You know, you watch those, you read the transcripts because they're available also, and then you read this, the real deal. You know, and it offers more detail in this one.
So you were saying earlier how your students react to that and say to you,
"Wow, you know, I can't see a film in the same way anymore. Thanks a lot, Mr. Shaman. I can't read a book in the same way.
Not to mention
I
Star Wars.
I think of this model, these rites of passage, and apply them to every character. Thanks a lot." So, great.
What a great thing to say to your teacher, though. You've done your work. Yeah. How beautiful. So the hero with 1,000 faces is 1,000 countries, 1,000 nationalities, 1,000 literatures. Same thing, but the hero goes through the circle. Initiation?
Well, separation.
Separation.
You know, call to adventure, separation, initiation, the road of trials, and then that's not enough. It's not enough to go through all that and win without the aid of the protective figure. Then you must have a return where you have to share what you've learned with society and teach society.
And that's the key,
That's
isn't
the
it?
key.
So it's a circle, but then it becomes a spiral of evolution. And guess who? Ithaca, which brings up Odysseus. And what did he do? He traveled for 20 years in a circle, came home with new wisdom and knowledge. How basic that is and appealing. So I'm gonna hold that to the end to kind of wrap things up. Oh, I lost your page.
No worries, it's okay.
I goofed.
It's all right.
Oh, goody. You're so cool. Oh, please. We have a modernist poet who's really universal in his appeal. Again, Spanish speaking, but what do you have for us?
So you want me to go with Federico García Lorca?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Federico García Lorca.
Sí. Reyerta. En la mitad del barranco, las navajas del Albacete, bellas de sangre contraria, relucen como los peces. Una dura luz de naipe recorta en el agrio verde caballos enfurecidos y perfiles de jinetes. En la copa de un olivo lloran dos viejas mujeres. El toro de la Reyerta se sube por las paredes. Ángeles negros traían pañuelos y agua de nieve. Ángeles con grandes alas de navajas de Albacete.
Musical, really.
Yeah, the sounds.
Sounds.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like that in English, but you know, it's still a good translation, but it's not.
Good.
You know.
But it's not the music that.
Yeah, the musicality, you know, it's. But you know, if it has the spirit of the original, then that's what we're looking for.
Well, that's what we're
as long
looking
as it
for.
maintains the spirit of the original. The choral. The Albacete knives, magnificent with stranger blood, flash like fishes on the gully slope. Light, crisp as a plain card snips out of bitter green the profiles of riders and maddened horses. Two old women in an olive tree are sobbing. The boil of the quarrel is rising up the walls. Black angels arrived with handkerchiefs and snow water. Angels with immense wings like opposite knives.
Does his imagery influence you at all in your writing?
I think I've been influenced more with like Caribbean poets like Nicolas Guillen and writers like novelists like Julia Alvarez. His work, I would say, I know that his play Bodas de Sangre, and also I'm trying to remember what his play, but there was another one where he used names, I guess in a sense symbolism. I think the way he uses symbolism I really appreciate, because I can't remember the play, and I know I'm going to remember it later, but he uses the names of the woman, like I think one of it is like anguish, if I remember correctly. You know, names that kind of represent something of their character, and there's a lot of symbolism, like the representation of the house. So in that sense, I would say yes. I appreciate his work a lot, and just, you know, La Guitarra. Yeah, see, now it's all coming to me. There is a poem that I really enjoy. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me, but it's called La Guitarra, the guitar. And it goes, empieza el llanto de la guitarra, lloran las coplas de la madrugada. And so it talks about like how the guitar cries. So I guess that poem, and I have my students learn that poem, and it talks about the cry of the guitar. And it's just lovely, it's beautiful. And then it says, ay, guitarra. So you hear that, you know, and most people would probably think it's like so dramatic, but it's just so beautiful, and it's just part of like, you know, that cry, like, ay, guitarra, corazón malherido por cinco espadas. It's just, it's probably, one of my favorite poems, that along with some of the poems from Nicolas Guillen, he's from Cuba, but yes, La Guitarra, now that you mention it, I love it.
His symbolism is difficult for me. I read the New York poems where he's walking the streets of New York and capturing all the flood of imagery that is strange for him, because this is a trip from Spain to New York. And I keep going back to the New York poems to try to make more sense for myself. But I agree with you on the symbolism totally. It's like, that's his gift. The quality of the symbolism, which I would say for me feels like surrealism, and what he'd call duende.
El duende, but that's a flamenco quality. That's really important,
So could you define that for us?
The duende?
In terms of literature.
See, it's kind of hard to separate, because I feel, in a sense, the duende is like the intensified emotion that you put. Because if you think in terms of flamenco, because la guitarra, when it's done, usually it's done with the guitar on the background. It sounds like the flamenco guitar, like that flamenco tune. So it kind of like goes hand in hand. He was very into putting that the flamenco and what he was going through, what was happening during that time, you know. But the duende is that intensified quality, and you can see it even when you see a flamenco performer, that they really, and sometimes it says like that the duende like comes in you and you like get really, you know, it gets intense.
It takes control.
It takes complete control, and that's such an important concept. Very difficult to explain unless you really experience and you let the music take you and move you, or the art or what you're reading. And I think the play that I enjoyed is Casa de Bernarda Alba. I'm gonna Google it, but I think that's what it was. That it came back to me. The house, So.
By the way, we're going to produce in Provincetown next summer, in the Tennessee Williams Play Festival. We're going to have one of Garcia Lorca's plays, Rosalita, or one of the.
I'm not familiar with that one. Yeah.
Wow. But there's also in Greek and other languages and cultures the version of duende. So in Greece, it's called prika, which is where the associational quality of composition takes over from the cerebral. So in a sense, duende is surrendering.
You know what, and I love that because like even when as a writer, like I'm working on a novel and I'm getting into the story, and a lot of times like the characters begin to write and not me. You know, it's like I would say no, this character wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's like no, you can't include that there. You have to like erase it because the character would not behave this way.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it becomes that kind of process.
That's a total experience.
Yeah.
Well, wow.
But that's
Wow. Can we go another hour? Oh my gosh.
It's so fascinating. To just talk about it. Yeah.
So, Prika, duende in Russian, Ruskaya dusha. You know, they all have the same surrender. But I think Garcia Lorca said, there's always death hovering and walking through the set. Ithaca by Konstantin Cavafy. So this wraps it up. When you start your journey to Ithaca, make sure it's a long road full of adventures, excitements. Make of it your own curiosity collection of gathered knowledge, know-how. The hero is on his way, right? And he's going to come back with wisdom and knowledge for the community. Have no fear of cannibal bogeymen met in half-light, or those with one eye, Cyclops, good allusion, for their main chance, and face into the fury of Poseidon's fickle seas fearlessly. That's pretty good translation. You need never truck with such trivial mediocrity in your voyaging if your vision stays steady on your horizon. If your mind maintains its magnanimity, that's what Rumi has, magnanimity. You need never traffic with these cannibal bogeymen, with those one-eyed chancers, or suffer the tantrums of temperamental Poseidon if you don't ship such confusions with you in the deep hold of your soul. You need never have to deal with these mediocrities unless your soul trumps them up before your blinded eyes. And Rumi is totally unblinded. This is unifying, I think, in a way, everything. It's the hero's journey, and you could almost plot on the circle how far he's gone, right? Make sure your journey's a long one, that your summer's dawns break for many years. Sail into ports you've not dreamed of, nor seen before, with a secure satisfaction in silent certitude. Meander through every marketplace you meet. Collect what materials you may need. The prismatic coral of curiosity, the mother of pearl, that's fantasy and those pleasures that please our senses. Acquire all that's available. Stop in every city to see and speak with anyone who has knowledge, cultivates curiosity of the imagination. Keep Ithaca marked on your mind's map. Always, arrival's there your final goal. Don't hurry your journey in any way. Better to last it for decades. Anchor at small islands as you age with the wealth you've acquired voyaging. That's giving me goosebumps. This is the real thing. Never expect Ithaca to give you anything. Ithaca gave you the journey. Without her, you'd never have started in the first place. She has nothing else to give you. Oh, thank you, my dear friends. You guys are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
What a deep vein we touched. And I hope some of your students get to see you. Wow. It's such a classroom quality to today. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Wow. That was so satisfying and energizing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Till next time.
Till next time.
До свидания. How do you say that in Farsi? Goodbye.
Khudafiz.
Oh, I like that. Say it again.
Khudafiz.
So beautiful.
It is beautiful.
You know, especially when you're new to a language, everything is so entrancing. So this is show number 10. We look forward to doing a Christmas show and maybe have some little ones gathered about. And I have a gift for you outside. This young 8-year-old child drew 2 American flags to raise money for Puerto Rico.
Oh,
And these 2 flags, you know, $2 a piece, she's selling, but her own art. What a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
So maybe she'll accept an invitation and show. And that would be a good show to celebrate Christmas, but also to share her art. 8, she's 8, and she's already drawing at her mother's knee. Art.
impressive, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks again. We'll call it a wrap and look forward to having our audience enjoy this show every Monday night at 8 o'clock in the 9 towns of the Shoreline Community TV. We're a wrap.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.